What's up, Campus Live fans, and welcome back to the second segment of our last summer countdown to football season sports show here live at Embassy Suites. Before we hop into our second and probably the most, anticipated games on the schedule, I want to take a quick second to thank all of our partners that make this show possible, starting with Embassy Suites of Lubbock, Roofmaster, Realtor Donella Rackler, Clear Rock Realty, Premier Cinemas and IMAX, as well as Modelo. And when we get into the Big 12 most important games, I want to take a quick second to thank Premier Cinemas and IMAX. The Premier Cinemas and IMAX is the premier place to watch movies in Lubbock. Be sure to tune into the monthly movie review presented by Premier Cinemas and IMAX on Campus Live. Be sure to grab your tickets to this month's films such as Jurassic World, Spider-Man, and Fantastic Four by visiting the link on your screen. Thank you again to Premier Cinemas for the support of the Summer Countdown Show. Lane, this is the one everybody wants to know. These are the games that you're going to want to tune into, whether they're at home, but most of them are on the road, which is tough for the Texas Tech football team. But hop right into arguably one of the most interesting teams this season.
Yeah, and how we were just talking about how easy, our non-conference schedule may be. Our conference schedule is going to be very, very tough. We start on the road at Utah, our first road game after our first three non-conference games. And, Utah, they had a tough season last year. They were only 5-7, but Kyle Whittingham has that program every single year playing as hard as they can. And also, Kyle Whittingham is a great coach. He's had many seasons where they've won more than 10 games, a bunch of bowl games. And this year, even after they had a pretty poor season last year at 5-7, they had a bunch of injuries last year that really is what decimated their season. And they bring in a new offensive coordinator with another quarterback in Devin Dampier, who could potentially be maybe the best quarterback in this whole entire conference. They both come in from New Mexico as offensive coordinator Jason Beck. And they also, just besides Dampier, they also ranked 17th in the country in returning production. So they're returning a bunch of guys. They are also upgrading at the quarterback position, which is the most important position on the whole entire field. And they also have a really good offensive line, maybe the best offensive tackle in the whole entire country in Spencer Fano. And that game going into Utah, they always have a great atmosphere too. It's always a good defense with defensive coordinator Morgan Scalley, and it's going to be a really tough game. I mean, especially after, I hope that we don't lull ourselves to sleep if we potentially do start 3-0, which we should, and then we're like, kind of feeling ourselves, and then we go into Utah and just get smacked. I really hope that we come into this game focused, because Utah is not going to be 5-7 this year. They're going to be a really good team, and they could even win the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, they're going to be a really good team, like you talked about. They got some new pieces along with some big-time returning pieces. I think getting Dampier from New Mexico, he was amazing last year. He was really, really good, and he is the definition of a dual threat. He threw for over 2,700 yards, but he also rushed for over 1,100 yards. So that just puts in perspective that this guy is doing it all. He also had 19 rushing touchdowns to only 12 passing touchdowns. Now, he did throw 12 interceptions, so 12-12 in the passing category. So it will be really interesting to see how Texas Tech, they got a lot of speed on the edges as well as their linebacker group, as well as two massive defensive tackles. Are they able to keep Devin in the pocket and, force him to throw? Because he was a little inconsistent at times passing the football. But when you can run the ball the way you do, the way he does, it's easy to make the easy reads, the easy passes when they're loading the box or spying, putting two spies on him at a time. A lot last year, a lot of the non-Power 4 teams, they could not stop him. Not saying that the Power 4 teams could, but no one could. He was amazing last year, and he finished 11th nationally in total offense, third in rushing touchdowns among FBS quarterbacks. He's going to be a playmaker and someone that they desperately needed, and you're going to have him for 2 years. He's a junior coming in, and he has the ability with the offensive coordinator coming with him. But I think you touched on it perfectly. The two offensive tackles are arguably the two best. You talked about arguably the best overall linemen, paired with one of probably a top 5, both first-round picks this upcoming draft. To be able to protect a quarterback like that, especially with the pass rushers that Texas Tech is able to put off the edge, it's going to be insane. And one name that I wanted to touch on is someone that Texas Tech fans, if you watched last season, very, very well, and that's Wayshawn Parker, the transfer from Washington State coming in. He's only a sophomore, true sophomore, but he exploded on Texas Tech last year. I mean, he had a 69-yard touchdown. I mean, he was great, over 700 yards and 4 touchdowns. With all the departures at Washington State, he finds his way in Utah. I just think that those are some big names that Texas Tech's really going to have no, and they're all on the offensive side of the ball. Good thing Texas Tech's defense is not like it was last year.
Yeah, and that's what this whole entire game is going to come down to is can the defensive line and our linebackers stay true to their assignments, because I know that with bringing in offensive coordinator Jason Beck and Kyle Whittingham, they're going to have a plan to put Devin Dampier in the best position possible to win this game, especially with his legs, because as we saw last year, especially last year, quarterbacks who could run gave us a lot of trouble last year, and I would imagine they're going to try to attack that same type of way. Even though our defense and our defense coordinator are completely different, they're going to try to use his legs very well. But speaking of good quarterback play, I know that one of our other road games, the Big 12 is just filled with these amazing quarterbacks this year, and the next team we're going to talk about is the Arizona State Sun Devils, and just how they're going to potentially build off of their amazing season last year, and how Texas Tech's going to match up against them on the road this year.
Yeah, they're going to have a team that's absolutely loaded from top to bottom, starting with ranked on many lists as the #1 quarterback in the Big 12. Offensive Player of the Year last year, second team All Big 12. He's the definition of a prototypical quarterback for them. I mean, he's also a dual threat. He does both. But, I mean, he can stand in the pocket and deliver strikes. Over 63% passing percentage last year, over 2,800 yards. He did have arguably the best overall running back in the Big 12 in Cam Scadaboo last year. He's gone. But you're going to talk about the guy they brought in who's an absolute tank as well. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, and they are the defending Big 12 champs, and they were one play away from going to the college football semifinals. They almost beat Texas, and they should have beaten Texas. And even though they do lose Cam Scadaboo, who arguably was the best running back in the whole entire country last year, went to the Heisman ceremony presentation, and he, being up for that award, that just shows how great of a running back he was, and just the production they need to replace that. But they still returned 7 on their offense and also 10 starters on their defense. So 79% of their production is coming back. And even though that they lost Cam Scadaboo, they get Kanye Udo from Army, who was a great running back last year, had over 1,100 yards rushing, and also arguably the second best receiver behind Jeremiah Smith in the whole entire country, and Jordan Tyson, is coming back with Sam Levitt, who could arguably, these two guys could win the Heisman Trophy themselves this year if they have the year that Arizona State thinks they're capable of this year. So that game, when we go to Arizona State, could potentially decide who is going to the Big 12 championship. That's how much is at stake in this game, and Texas Tech has got to be really on their game, because this is going to be probably the game of the year in the whole entire Big 12.
Yeah, like we were talking about, I think we did our season predictions. I'm thinking that this game is a huge, because theoretically, let's say that Utah isn't the team we're thinking of. This could be your first major test, and it's going to be one that could make or break the rest of the season, because 2 weeks later, you head to the next team we're going to talk about, and that's Kansas State. Again, on the road in Manhattan, against a team who has aspirations of being in the Big 12 title game. And last season, they were really good. They had some hiccups we're going to talk about with their quarterback. But Avery Johnson, again, if you're a Texas Tech fan, 2 years ago, 4 rushing touchdowns in Lubbock as the backup quarterback, coming in and just run plays, could not stop him. You have to stop him this year. And again, another quarterback in the Big 12 that is looking to be, in New York for the Heisman Trophy ceremony at the end of the year. I think a guy that you pair with with Dylan Edwards, who's going to be the sole running back with DJ Giddens gone. 2 big-time playmakers for Kansas State.
Yeah, and with Avery Johnson, he's such a talented quarterback, but there are question marks with his arm, and if we can get after him and make some very questionable looks for him in the secondary, where he's confused and he starts making poor throws, I think that can be a really successful strategy for Texas Tech as they head into this game. But it's going to be a really tough game, and Texas Tech hasn't won at Kansas State since 2006 or 2007 or something. So that just shows how tough it is to go play in Manhattan against a really tough team. And Chris Kleinman's a great coach. And not only do they return, Avery Johnson, but like you talked about, they return Dylan Edwards, Jace Brown, and their tight end Lincoln Kerr. And they also return basically their whole entire defensive line, which was really, really good last year. They're really talented, and even themselves, they're going to have a huge Week 0 matchup versus Iowa State. They basically kick off the college football season this weekend. So we're going to see how we're going to get a good idea of what Kansas State looks like against another Big 12 opponent that should be really good also in Iowa State. And I'm really excited to see what they look like this weekend.
Yeah, they got a challenge week 0, not even week 1.
Yeah.
So we're going to see, like you said early, and we'll have a good idea there. And we're now going to shift into our only home game on this important scale, which is now maybe not so important. No, you're going to if you watch the headlines, a lot of off-the-field issues with BYU this year and their quarterback, Jake Ratliff, who's now at Tulane. Now you're looking at some transfers coming in, a redshirt freshman or a true freshman coming in and trying to take the helm on a team that is a top 25 team. Well, not now, but they were going to be top 25, I think, if they had their quarterback. And now you don't have them, and now you're looking at, L.J. Martin, who was a big part of their team last year, running the football, coming back. But you got a good quarterback or a good head coach trying to figure it out in a great atmosphere that can always, steal some games out there. But it's going to be a tough season for BYU now.
Yeah, I think, last year BYU, they were in playoff discussions. They were all the way up to like 6th or 7th ranked in the college football playoff, and that's late in the season when they were started 10-0, 9-0. They really had a good season with Jake Retzlaff as their quarterback. And now that he's not there, having to go potentially with a freshman with a team that also lost a bunch of other guys as well. They do get L.J. Martin and Chase Roberts back, but with this game in Lubbock, this is a must-win for Texas Tech. This should be a game that we should have wrapped up by the third quarter based off of what BYU has now lost from this season. And, the theme that we've continued to talk about with the 3 previous games, how they're going to be all on the road, you have to go steal one of those games because we need to go undefeated at home this year. And with how tough our road schedule is, there's got to be a game or two where we go steal and win if we want to get to the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I feel like all these games are winnable. Every game in the Big 12 is winnable, but every game is losable as well because of how good and evenly matched these teams are. Because, you're thinking Kansas State, they're looking at the schedule, and they're thinking Texas Tech, look at this team, look how good they are on paper. We'll see what happens when the season starts, and, just a couple of days we'll figure out what Kansas State and Iowa State are looking like. Even though we don't have to play Iowa State, it's always nice to see our But that was going to wrap things up here for our second segment of our last Countdown to Sports show of the summer. Thank you to Embassy Suites here for hosting us, and make sure y'all stay tuned and come out and join us for the last 2 segments as we're going to do all of our remaining games, which are not as highly anticipated, but still very important. Like you talked about, got to win all those games. And so make sure you stay tuned, and as always, Wreck 'em.
Wreck 'em.